Hello again. Our next guests are a most extraordinary couple in the Netherlands who have dived deep into making the circular economy happen on the ground. A great big slice of the Dutch circular economy is based on the vision of Thomas Rau and Sabine Oberhuber. Sabine Oberhuber was raised in Germany's greenest city of Freiburg, and her passion about our planet is in her DNA. She is an economist specialized in strategy and finance. She is a circular economy expert, leading cutting-edge circular strategy and innovation projects, both for business and the public sector, as well as an experienced international speaker. She is convinced that the key to real change is in people's consciousness. Thomas Rau is an architect, inspirator, and visionary. His motto is, "Guided by the future." He is guided in all his actions by what is needed in the future and not by what is currently feasible. Rau is therefore seen as one of the most important champions of the circular economy. Over the course of more than a decade, they closely studied the problematic aspects of the current economic and cultural situation. They formulated problems, solutions, and ideas, and used those to develop practical concepts used in all of their projects. Many of those concepts and solutions are being enthusiastically adopted by society as well as the business community. And they beautifully explain all of this in the book they wrote together called Matter Matters. So I can think of no better people to talk to us about regenerative buildings and the circular economy. So I have the pleasure to welcome Thomas Rau and Sabine Oberhuber to the floor.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
So can you hear us?
Yes.
Does it work?
It works.
Okay. Good, perfect. Good afternoon, everybody. So my wife and me, we just prepared a small presentation to invite you for a kind of a mental journey, because it's all about mind change and not about climate change. So the question is, what kind of mindset do we need to change the world which we created until right now? And then we have to realize that we are guests on planet Earth. We are not the host. I mean, everybody knows this. And if you're a guest somewhere, nothing is from you. And you know, everything is equally important. And the Earth is a closed system. And in a closed system, you have what you have, you don't have what you don't have, and you have to take care for it. Otherwise, it's getting lost. So what does it mean for us to be a part, to be a member in a closed system? And then we have to realize, I mean, everybody's realizing this is not new, but nobody of you will leave this planet alive. This is 100% sure. It won't work. So our being is life, but you know what? Everything is temporary. Our being is temporary and everything is temporary, because everything is an answer on a temporary need we have. But if everything is temporary, that means the consequence of impermanence are permanent. You see those pyramids, we still have it, and in Cairo, the Egyptians, they still have to take care for the fact that 5,000 years ago, someone decided to make this kind of beautiful architecture. So that means we have to be aware what are the permanent consequences of the fact that we facilitate our needs in this moment in this way. And that means real estate doesn't exist, because real estate is a temporary aggregate to facilitate a temporary need. So real estate is a mobile estate, maybe for 3 days, like this one, maybe for 3 years, and maybe for 5,000 years. But every real estate is temporary, so at least it's a estate. So And then we thought about, okay, what is then waste out of this context? And then we realized that waste is material without identity in anonymity. And a recycling company, if they have a look to the waste, they take something out and say, hey, I know you, you are not waste, your name is copper. So in fact, the recycling company, they give the materials without identity their old identity back. So our idea was to say, okay, if waste is material without identity and anonymity, maybe then it's a good idea to give all materials in a building a documented, a registered and archived identity, like we have as a human being. And then we call it a passport. So we introduced, I think now it's already 8 years ago, the material passport in the building environment. And maybe it's good to know that next year the Dutch government planned that every new building has to have a material passport in 2021. So then we said, okay, so if we then have this passport, how can we facilitate it? In the beginning, we had a lot of Excel sheets, so there was a lot of work. And then we start, okay, how can we professionalize the material passport? And then we realized, oh, wait a minute, the surface of planet Earth is also a limited edition. Because in a closed system, you don't have scarcity. In a closed system, everything is limited. So the materials are a limited edition, and the surface is also a limited edition, for example. And we know exactly what the surface of the planet Earth is. You can read this number down there. And to facilitate the limited edition surface of planet Earth, we created the cadastre. The cadastre is the library for the surface of planet Earth. Because all those sites, they are absolutely unique, they are absolutely a limited edition, and we have to register this. And we all know several countries where you don't have a cadastre, and this is a huge problem for the economy and for the
society.
And for the society, yes. I have a small problem with the clicker here. Okay. So then the next step was, okay, if the cadastre is the library for the surface of planet Earth, let's start then the cadastre for materials, which are also a limited edition, and we called it Madastre. Madastre is eliminating waste for 100%. And we started this initiative now already four years ago. And we searched in the market. Now there are parties who are interested to start this platform. And here you can see we got already 33 Kennedys. We call them Kennedys because Kennedy said, we go to the moon, we don't know how, we don't know what it costs, we don't know who is going there, but I'm sure over 7 years in this decade we go to the moon. So we got those 33 Kennedys. And they financed a public platform called Madastre to register materials in all the buildings. And if it's registered, you can have a look at www.madastre.com. Then, and if you know all the materials, and if you know the quality of the materials, you know the quantity of the materials, then you can say, okay, what are the value of the materials in my building? What is the value of the material right now? And what will be the value of those materials in my building in the future? Because we have to realize that a worthless building doesn't exist. A worthless building is organized by valuable materials. So the ultimate consequence is that the depreciation of a building with a material passport, where you know what the value of the materials are, the depreciation is not going back to zero, it's going back to the percentage of the value of the material in the building. So it's a huge financial incentive, and then we create buildings as a material bank. Here you can see one of those screenshots from the platform. You just bring in your drawings or your BIM model, and then, because everything is already registered in the BIM model, and then it's a kind of a software, and after some seconds you get a material passport. So if you like, you can have a look there too. But then the question is, so we know materials are limited edition. Now we registered everything. It's archived, so we know exactly what is in the building. But then the next step is that we have to change the design, because we have to design every product, every building as a material depot, because we know it is temporary and there's a moment that someone doesn't like it or it's getting worthless to need it. And then we want to take out one by one all materials which are organizing this building. So then we talk about the building as a material depot. We give you some examples. This is a building as a material mine. I mean, if you register the material afterwards, which are already there, it's a mine. And we have this client. This is a Dutch network company, and they had this, they called it worthless composition, and they want to demolish it. They want to make a new building. Said, okay, wait a minute. Let's have a look to the material which are organizing your worthless building. So we registered it. We had 2 weeks time for that. We created a material passport. We showed the value of the material. And then the client said, hey, Thomas, you know what? Maybe it's a good idea to create the new building with those material who were facilitating our worthless old building. And what you see here, you see it back for 82% in this building. This is 82% of everything what we have seen here in the mine. And if you put this material then in a new composition, then you think about, okay, wait a minute, now I have to create a depot. So all the connections in the building are in that way designed that we exactly know what kind of materials are in the building and how can we take it out. Because a circular building doesn't exist. You can create a building with a circular potential, because even a circular building, you just can demolish it and everything is gone. So we create buildings with a circular potential. It depends on the next generation, if they want to activate the circular potential, and if they want to dig out, if they want to take out all the materials out of the material depot. And then you see this roof. It's a steel roof. And if you ask a steel company to create a steel roof, yeah, you get a very nice price, but not the right price, because the business model of the steel company is to sell steel. So we were searching for a steel company who can create something with less as possible steel and not with as much as possible. And then we found the roller coaster, because the roller coaster knows I have to assemble it every weekend, I have to disassemble it every weekend, and I have to move it to the next city. So every kilo extra steel in the composition is not good for his business model. So we asked the roller coaster, can you create maybe a roof, a steel roof? He said, Mr. Rau, of course not. You know, I'm a roller coaster. I said, okay, I understand this. But can you imagine that you create a horizontal roller coaster? And then he said, a horizontal roller coaster? Oh, I can do that. He said, okay, and if you make a horizontal roller coaster, we call it a roof. And here you see the roof of this building designed by a roller coaster company, and nothing changed. Yeah, I mean, what changed? We need 34% less steel for the same roof. So we don't change the design of the roof, but we change the mindset of the business model. So ultimately, this is a building. It's a material depot, and it's the first mobile estate in 2012, which was designed. And of course, it's energy positive. I mean, we just do this since 20 years to make energy positive buildings. And then the next step, let's have a look to the next step. The next step then is we had now the mine, we had the depot. Now we go to the bank. And this is also a headquarter of a bank. It's a Triodos Bank, the most sustainable bank in the world. And they asked us, Thomas, can you create a building as a material bank? So this is a quite new building. It's opened in 2020. It's 12,500 square meters. And the main construction is done in wood. The columns, the core, the stairs, the floors. So 92% of the whole main construction is done in wood. And all the connections are dry connection. We use the CLT elements, the so-called timber, cross-laminated timber elements, and everything is standardized, like in the car industry. So we individualized by standardization, because that what you see here, this small image, we have done this, I think, about 200 times. And then we realized, okay, wait a minute, if we organize a depot as a material bank, we don't build a building anymore. We organize a logistic process with the result, a building. Because everything is prepared before we start to build. And the effect is we need for this building 13 months, and in the traditional way, we would need 18 months. So we need 5 months less to create a building, because it was a logistic process. And as I mentioned before, all connections are dry connections. And how did we do this? We used screws. And we used 165,312 screws to fix the whole building. Because if you make a material depot, it has to be a remountable building, because you have to disassemble the building without losing any value of material in the building. For that, we need dry connections, and in this case, we use the screws. And the interesting thing is, I mean, wood is not a limited edition. Wood is an unlimited edition. Because nature is creating every year wood again and again, and what we are digging out of the ground is there once, and maybe it's gone forever. So the quantity of wood which we use in this building grows in the German forest in 11 minutes and 36 seconds. So can you imagine what does it mean if we would make all the buildings in wood? And of course, it's enhancing the biodiversity of the estate. I think this was a very, very important argument to get the permission to build the building. So at least it's an energy positive building. It's the first office building with a wooden construction, which is 100% remountable. It's carbon negative. So we're storing around about 1.6 million kilograms CO2 in the building. So because of the fact that we change our mindset, we can create a completely different kind of buildings. I mean, this was a quite big building, 12,500 square meter. Let's have a look to a very small building. This is about 104 square meter platform. This is a bird watching post. It has 100% circular potential. It's a wooden construction. It's created in Finland, and then we bring it by boat here in this natural area. Here you can see the construction. In fact, it's a big egg. So to be honest, it was quite complicated to create the egg. But once it was done, then it was okay. Then it was stable. Here you see the inner construction of this bird watching post. And this is a social housing project we just work on. So we start, I think next month we start with the building. This is a social housing project. It's a social housing project completely done in a wooden modular system. The bank we just mentioned is done in a wooden element construction, and the social housing project is done in a wooden modular system, modular construction. And you see again, it's energy positive, it's CO2 negative, it has 100% circular potential. So you see, this is the base which we can perform if we change our mindset in the building environment. And then maybe something very big. This is a new terminal. We created a turnaround terminal. Because then the next step is that we don't make projects anymore. We created building as a product. And you see here a rotating platform for airplanes, and the dock on the terminal, and in case that you need everything 100 times because you have 100 gates, you just need everything once, because every plane is coming along, the same vacuum cleaner, the same catering stuff, etc. And so this has a lot of advantages. So I just want to mention you, I mean, sustainability means we're optimizing the system. And if you optimize through time, it's getting more and more expensive. The step forward is smaller and smaller. At least you realize, oh, wait a minute, nothing changed. And then if you're not there, then you start to manipulate. So we can see this is in the German car industry. So circularity is not sustainability 2.0. So circularity is not optimizing the system, but circularity is designing a new system based on a new mindset. So that was my part. So Sabine, now it's your turn.
And what I wanted to share with you is that Thomas was talking about buildings becoming a product. And the next step would be that products become a service. Because we believe that if producers provide a service and retain the ownership of the product, they will create much better products, serving for a longer life, for less energy, and for much better designs to repair and ultimately take the products back and create new products or materials out of them. We started this as an expert office, and we discovered together with Philips, by asking them to deliver us light as a service rather than the lighting equipment, that we could save 50% of the energy consumption in our office. We took that to scale at Schiphol Airport because Schiphol is redesigning their lounges every 15 years. And what they could get at the market at the time would only last for 6 years, which meant that you would have to reinstall 3 times the whole lighting equipment in those 15 years, which is a really bad business case. So they came to us and said, could you help us so that Philips sells us light for 15 years? And what they discovered is that they had just to make a very simple change in the design to make the lighting equipment last for 15 years, because it was a very little driver installed in the installation in such a way that you would have to tear down everything and destroy everything in the course. As they took on the responsibility for those 15 years, they changed the design. The driver is under a little lid. It can be accessed from the front. The driver can exchange very, very easily. And the equipment can be maintained for 15 years, maybe even for 20. And so just imagine the savings we do on natural resources when we would prolong the life of our products by 3 times, 4 times, just by changing a little bit of the design. And by the way, also in this case, Schiphol save 50% of the energy consumption, because the energy for the lighting system was in the responsibility of Philips. We created the same idea we created for a housing corporation in Amsterdam for washing machines. What we saw there was that we are talking in this segment of energy poverty. People are buying cheap machines with the fact that they have a really high energy bill. And so we teamed up with Bosch and with a housing corporation in Amsterdam to provide machines as a service for the social segment. Which was a huge success, and now Bosch and many other household suppliers are taking this model on to provide machines as a service. And the interesting thing is they get also a completely new business model and completely new and much more intense customer relations. Sorry, that was one. What I wanted to share with you before is that yes, thank you for changing what is very important for that is that you think and on your procurement, what questions you are asking. So if you have, like Thomas, the roller coaster example, what we were searching for was the right person to deliver us as a service. And if you're changing the question of what you want, you get a completely different answer. So that is something we created a strategy for the Dutch government for the procurement of their office furniture. And what we saw that we completely transformed the market for office furniture in the Dutch market segment. So what we truly believe is that wherever you are, if you're a company or if you are a provider of services, you can change the business model and the sector by providing different answers or asking different questions. For us, it all comes down, in fact, to this completely new attitude and how we treat the materials in our system. And we are convinced that we should treat every material as a precious Swiss watch, namely that you never actually own a material, but you merely take care for it for the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sabine and Thomas, for this most extraordinary exhibit. And I also like it that you included social housing, because a lot of people say, oh, this is too expensive, we can't afford it. And that's not true. You have to put it all down on paper and with the willingness to make it happen. And I see that's the way you operate.
Exactly.
Just a few final remarks that you would have?
You mean me?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, what you see in the car industry, if they start to innovate in the car industry, they start with the most expensive cars, with the BMW 7 or with the Mercedes S-Class, and then slowly by slowly it comes down, and now it's everything in the very cheap cars. So that's the same way we have to do in architecture. We have to experiment and to innovate in, let's say, in the buildings where we have much more budget, and then with a lot of intelligence we can implement it in the social housing. So the fact is we don't need more money, but we need more intelligence in the social housing sector.
Yes.
Yes, and I think, and I believe that we can, if we create a complete system, so we create different type of houses, we create different types of apartments, but we also think about what is going into the buildings as a service, like the equipment, the kitchen equipment, etc. We can do a lot to help this customer segment to have a decent way of life.
Well, unfortunately, our time is up. I thank you very much for your contribution and for being here with us.
Okay.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Take care.